Good morning. We are now on the record. Today is December 11th, 2023, and the time is 11:30. This is the video recorded deposition of Detective Jon VanGesen, taken on behalf of the plaintiff in the matter of James Leighty versus Sheriff Daryl Wheeler et al., filed in the United States District of Idaho, United States District Court, District of Idaho, case number 2:23-CV-00063-DCN. This deposition is being held via virtual conference. My name is Matt D., certified legal videographer representing Lyman Legal Video. Will the attorneys present please introduce yourselves to the record and state whom you represent?
Mika Rothman, representing plaintiff Jim Lighty.
Braden Pence here also for Mr. Lighty, but I will not be taking the deputy.
Sorry, Braden, your photo ran off of my screen, so I didn't know you were still there. Heather Yakeley is present on behalf of all defendants.
Thank you. The court reporter today is Connie Rekab. She can administer the oath and then we can proceed.
Please raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give in this matter will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
All right. Hello, is it Lieutenant VanGesen now? Am I pronouncing that right?
Correct.
Okay. My name is Mika Rothman. As you heard, I'm one of the attorneys representing Jim Lighty, and I'll be taking your deposition today. Today is my opportunity to ask you questions and learn what you know and believe about the events that comprise this matter. I will ask you questions and I will do my best to make those questions understandable, but if you find them confusing or you can't understand, will you let me know?
I will.
Great. If you answer a question, I'm going to assume that you understood it. Of course, if later later in the deposition you find that you want to add or correct information, you're welcome to come back to a question. When you are answering questions in the affirmative or the negative, I just ask that you use yes or no rather than or because obviously that wouldn't make for a good transcription. Since we're on Zoom, I think it's easy to accidentally interrupt each other. I might interrupt you, you may interrupt me if you think I'm ending a question, but to the extent that we can avoid talking over each other, that'd be great. And then I will probably take a break around every hour, but if for any reason you need to take a break, please just let me know. I'd only ask that you respond to a question if it's still pending. Does all those instructions and reminders make sense?
They do.
Okay. Are you taking any medication or anything that would cause you to or that would affect your testimony today or affect your memory?
Not that I'm aware.
Is there any other reason why you don't believe you're able to give truthful testimony today?
No.
It looks like you're in an office room, is that right?
Yes, I'm in my office in Sandpoint.
Okay. Is anyone in the room with you?
No.
Okay. And do you have any notes with you that you are referring to or anything on your computer other than perhaps the folder of potential exhibits that Ms. Yakeley sent you?
Correct. I have the folder of potential exhibits up ready if we run into a problem, and I have a blank tablet in front of me to use.
Okay. So could you please state and spell your name for the record?
Yes, it's Jon VanGesen. It's JONVANGESEN.
And have you ever gone by any other name?
I went by my stepfather's last name, Cannon, Cannon, in junior high, but it was never legally changed.
And have you been deposed before?
I have.
How many times?
I think this would be the third time in 32 years.
Would you please describe the nature of the matter in which you were deposed the first 2 times?
One was a lawsuit in U.S. District Court in Tacoma that involved 16 or 18 defendants, of which I was listed regarding a search warrant service at a home in Belfair, Washington.
You remember approximately when that was? The year is fine.
Yeah, it was my very first day at working at a drug task force in 1996. Well, that was the date of the incident alleged. I don't recall the date of the deposition.
Okay. And then the second matter?
I believe it was Taylor versus VanGesen, U.S. District Court, Tacoma. And that was a lawsuit filed by a gentleman from a 2015 traffic stop.
And what sort of claims were brought by that gentleman against you?
Well, I know there were numerous, but essentially it was alleged racial profiling, and then whatever other allegations were brought forward. I'm not sure of all the details.
Okay. Were there First Amendment claims in either the first or second matter that you described?
I don't believe so.
I'm going to ask you a few questions about your knowledge about this lawsuit. Could you sort of just describe for me what you understand to be the plaintiff's claims against the sheriff's office, Sheriff Wheeler, and yourself?
That Mr. Lighty, I believe that's how you say it, alleges a First Amendment violation regarding his use of the sheriff's office Facebook page.
And how did you form that knowledge or understanding?
From receiving the documents shortly after the lawsuit was filed that Sheriff Wheeler was being sued for those violations.
And when you say the documents, do you mean the complaint and the motion for preliminary injunction?
I don't specifically recall the title of the first document I saw or what order. The sheriff made me aware, and I looked at documents related to the case. I don't know what they were titled or what order.
Okay. So the sheriff told you first about the lawsuit, and then you reviewed the documents.
Yes.
What did the sheriff tell you about the lawsuit?
Nothing specific other than he was being sued, and provided me with the documents related to the Facebook page.
Did he tell you that he was being sued by Mr. Lighty?
Yes, and the documents had that name attached as well. Yes.
Okay. Did you did that name ring a bell? Mr. Lighty's name ring a bell when you heard it?
It had from our previous my previous knowledge of what we had been doing with the Facebook page, and Mr. Leighty's participation in that.
Okay. Regarding your knowledge of Mr. Lighty, was sort of you came to know about him through his activity on the Facebook page, is that right?
Yes.
Okay, and had you heard of him before he began commenting on the Facebook page?
Nope.
Okay. Did you ever exchange any emails or text messages with Sheriff Wheeler or anyone else, when you first learned about the lawsuit?
I know we corresponded. I don't know in what fashion, because I was asked to provide answers to questions in documents or provide information for the undersheriff and sheriff to come up with answers for the documents that were requesting answers.
Okay.
I don't know specifically how. I mean, there were phone calls and also written documents as far as writing stuff down and sending it to the sheriff and undersheriff. And I believe there probably was text in line with that as well too. I know there was, as far as unblocking Mr. Lighty later, when that was agreed upon to do, or something like that. And then obviously there was communication leading up to Mr. Lighty being blocked from the page.
Specifically, when you first learned about the lawsuit, did you exchange texts or emails with Sheriff Wheeler or anyone else?
I'm sorry for interrupting you. I don't specifically recall.
Okay. When you first learned about the lawsuit from Sheriff Wheeler, what was your reaction?
Oh, I was surprised. Because, we had put good terms and conditions in place, and we had reiterated those terms and conditions to the public after multiple violations of those terms. And my understanding, it was a reasonable next step to stop from what was occurring. Mr. Lighty's comments that were continuously breaking those terms of use for the audience.
Were you involved in creating the terms of use?
Yes.
Can you describe how you created or how you participated in that process?
I looked at other models in our industry, specifically law enforcement, about what other law enforcement offices, agencies were using as terms of use, and put together proposed terms of use for the sheriff to consider with his legal team, and left it up to them to decide what to put in place.
So it's your understanding that lawyers reviewed the terms of use before they were implemented?
Yes.
Do you know if that was Ms. Yakeley?
It was not Miss Yakeley.
Okay. You mentioned that you looked, or actually, let me go back. Do you know who was on the Sheriff Wheeler's legal team who reviewed the terms of use?
I don't recall, because it was the first time that I had ever been in anything like that here at this office. So I don't recall the name of the lawyer that the sheriff consulted with that.
Right.
I know it wasn't. I'm sorry, I know it wasn't Heather.
Okay. Do you think it was a lawyer who worked for Bonner County?
I believe so. I don't think it was an outside consultant or an outside firm.
And so after the sheriff and his legal team reviewed, was there any other review of the terms by anyone else?
I don't know.
Okay. what other, so you said you looked at other law enforcement offices' terms of use as models for what you created for Bonner County Sheriff's Office Facebook page?
Yes.
Okay. Did you refer to anything else other than the samples from other law enforcement offices?
No.
Were you asked to create the terms of use by anyone, or was this your idea?
No, I was asked by the sheriff to create the terms of use.
Okay. Did he say why he wanted you to create them?
Because the sheriff's office had not been allowing comments from the public. And in conversations with the sheriff that I had, I thought it was beneficial to have that community interaction with the sheriff's office. And he agreed to do that if we put terms of use in place.
Why did you think it would be beneficial to have comments enabled?
Well, because social media, if it's just a blowhorn, you know, somebody up there talking, and there isn't an exchange of information, it has a lot less value. If people can engage with the other party, they feel, you know, some feel valued, some feel like they're part of that, some, you know, feel like they're, you know, part of the sheriff's office or part of solving crimes, or they just feel part of it if they can participate. Or, in my opinion, was that comments were important to allow the public to do that, so that the public could interact with the sheriff's office.
And Sheriff Wheeler had agreed to enable comments, provided that you come up with the terms of use. Is that my understanding that correctly?
No, that there were terms of use on the page. I suggested a model to him, and he authorized the terms of use that we were to use. I didn't have any authority to do that by myself.
Okay. Did you discuss enabling comments with anyone else other than Sheriff Wheeler?
Oh, I think I probably discussed it with several deputies over the course of several days, because I'd come from an agency where I'd been involved in social media as part of the team. And I felt that it was important that we were losing out on that part of our social media, not allowing public comments. And so, yeah, there were, you know, just in passing conversations about that with coworkers. And then when I had an opportunity to talk to the sheriff about it, and he considered that, then he agreed to move forward if we had terms of use in place.
I'm gonna jump topics. You mentioned that you had come from a different agency where social media, you had comments enabled on social media platforms.
Yes.
Okay, and what agency was that?
It's Kitsap, KITSAP, across the water from you there.
Yeah.
I worked for that sheriff's office for 29 years.
And were you involved in monitoring or assisting with social media profiles while you were at the Kitsap County Sheriff's Office?
Yes, as I stated previously, I was part of the media team, so including social media for the sheriff's office.
Okay, and what were your duties as part of the media team with Kitsap County Sheriff's Office?
Well, with social media specifically, I could post with approval and make suggestions and build stories with, you know, that wouldn't be posted until they were authorized. As far as other media, I wrote press releases. I did live press conferences. I did recorded press conferences. I was the PIO for the Cariega quadruple murder case from 2017 on until my retirement, because one person was in front of the camera and speaking the voice for those during that investigation. And then with Twitter, I had the same perimeters. We operated a Twitter and a Facebook page. I could make suggestions, write stories, create posts once authorized, then post those to the public. And one of the conditions with being the poster of those stories or information, I was then responsible to monitor the comments as a result of something I created or posted.
And when you say you were responsible for monitoring comments on the posts you created, so you wouldn't monitor comments, for example, on a post that someone else created?
I may monitor them, but I wasn't responsible to monitor them.
Okay.
But when I posted, I was responsible for monitoring comments related to a post I posted.
Okay. And when you say monitor, were you hiding or deleting, or, sort of what comments, or what does monitoring entail?
Monitoring entails reading the comments and see if there's information to glean from those comments related to the post or other cases that could be shared with investigators, could be shared with another agency. It would be specific to what the content of the post was.
Did you ever hide or delete comments from posts?
No.
Did the Kitsap County Sheriff's Office Twitter and Facebook pages have terms of use?
Yes.
Were you involved in creating those?
No.
Are you aware of other colleagues in the Kitsap County Sheriff's Office who hid or deleted comments from their posts?
I'm unaware of anything like that happening.
How
And I
long
haven't, I'm sorry, I haven't been there since December 31st of 2020. So I'm speaking to the time I was there.
Sure. How long did you participate in monitoring and posting on the Twitter and Facebook accounts at Kitsap County Sheriff's Office?
I'm estimating about 4 to 5 years. Probably 2015 or 16 is when we started.
Was there any sort of rule or guidance at Kitsap County Sheriff's Office about hiding or deleting comments on Facebook or Twitter?
We didn't hide Facebook or Twitter comments or delete them.
And was that based on a rule or a policy?
I don't recall if it was specifically in the social media policy or if that's just something that the team discussed as, just like we develop a story, here's what we want in the story and how we want it written. And here we're not deleting comments. We're not hiding comments, that kind of thing. I don't know if it was an actual rule written in.
Okay. I guess another way is, was it your understanding that you weren't allowed to, or it just wasn't practice?
Both. It was my understanding that we didn't do it. And yeah, in practice, we didn't do it.
Okay. And why not?
Because that's what my sheriff and his designees told us. That's how we're operating our Facebook page and Twitter at that time.
And did they provide any explanation as to how they came up with that rule or practice?
I don't know if they did or not.
You didn't have an understanding of the rationale for that rule or practice, is that right?
No, not specifically.
Did you have a general understanding?
What I understood, the basic understanding I had was it was a government public document that was being created, and just to leave it the way it is. And we had to have it backed up and archived as well to save that record. I mean, that's my own understanding of why it was set up that way.
And how did you form that understanding?
Just from experience and what I was being told, and because social media and law enforcement wasn't there 20 years ago, it came in this last decade, and so it's something new that everybody was trying to learn, and obviously I was trying to learn it as well.
Did you think that the sort of guidance from the sheriff at Kitsap County, that his guidance was based on the First Amendment?
Object to the form, calls for speculation. He's already testified he doesn't know why the sheriff did what he did.
Yeah, I don't know why the sheriff made the decision, or what was backing up the decisions, or where that came from. That was just my understanding.
As you sit here today, do you think that had something to do with the First Amendment?
Object to the form, calls for speculation, also calls for a legal conclusion.
I don't know.
So you mentioned that you worked for the Kitsap County Sheriff's Office for 29 years. What were the positions that you held during your tenure there?
I was a patrol deputy. I was a narcotics detective. I was a patrol sergeant. I was an investigator for the Office of Professional Standards, or Internal Affairs. I was a patrol lieutenant. I was a detective lieutenant. I was an operator on our SWAT team. I was commander of our SWAT team. I was also a commander on our regional drug task force, and also for our countywide critical incident response team, which involved officer-involved shootings and other major incidents to support small cities like Bainbridge Island's first murder in 15 years and those type of things. And then I was appointed acting chief of detectives my few final months before my retirement.
And you retired in December 31st, 2020.
Correct.
And when did you begin working for Bonner County Sheriff's Office?
January 4th, 2021, a 3-day retirement.
What prompted your retirement from Kitsap County Sheriff's Office?
3 decades of law enforcement in Western Washington, and raising a second phase of young children in a better environment. I mean, I moved out of Seattle to Port Orchard 30 years ago, and it's much like moving out of Port Orchard now and moving to North Idaho, like Port Orchard was 30 years ago. So personal reasons, and yeah, just my career here, I wanted to get back to why I originally got back in law enforcement, and that was serving the public, being face to face with the community. And I mean, those were a lot of the reasons of why I decided to, number one, retire, and number two, move to North Idaho.
Were you, or I guess, how did you choose to relocate to Bonner County?
My daughter was a Division I recruit for the University of Idaho to play soccer, and we wanted a place that, number one, we could retire, and number two, we could be closer to her during her college soccer career. And we began looking for houses from south of Boise, or I'm sorry, south of Moscow, and eventually ended up north of Sandpoint, where we found property that we ended up developing and building on. I mean, that's one of the main reasons. And I had looked for employment here too, and that was going to be based on where we lived. So wherever we live, am I going to get back in law enforcement in Coeur d'Alene, Boundary County, Bonner County? And I settled on the Bonner County Sheriff's Office.
Before Kitsap County Sheriff's Office, did you work for a law enforcement agency, or was that your first law enforcement job?
That was my first law enforcement job as a commissioned officer. I did work for the City of Auburn Police Department when I was 18 till 22, where I was a non-commissioned officer, community service officer for them. I was also an intern for the King County Police Department at the time. They've changed names, but I was an intern for them as well during college. And I was a volunteer explorer cadet for King County Police as well.
Aside from your law enforcement employment, have you held any other jobs? And I'll say, like, you know, I don't need, when you were 16, you worked at, you know, the McDonald's or whatever. But any other jobs as an adult?
Yes, for over a decade, I was a certified state of Washington driving instructor mainly for teens, but through the 911 driving school, where I worked for over a decade. And then, you know, law enforcement has other contract work here and there. Are you concerned about off-duty employment or?
That's fine for now.
Yeah, they're not significant. There was other things, but they were small.
Aside from Kitsap County Sheriff's Office and then obviously Bonner County Sheriff's Office, have you had any other roles as sort of managing or monitoring any official governmental or other Facebook accounts?
No, I have not.
You mentioned that you were working in law enforcement in Seattle and then moved to Port Orchard. It was very different. And then you moved from Port Orchard and now you're in northern Idaho, and that's also different. I'm wondering if you could talk about differences that you've observed moving from Port Orchard to Bonner County.
Well, obviously the incomes are dramatically different. State of Washington's are right to work state, or a union state, I guess, and Idaho's are not. So you've got those big differences that determines wages that are significantly different. People make much less money in Idaho than state of Washington. It's just, for me, the biggest thing was I noticed the slowing down of the pace of life. I mean, in Western Washington for 30 years, it was just go, 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 go. And things have slowed down dramatically. I think the, giving my kids a better environment where police aren't subject to attack nearly as much as they were in Western Washington, both on the public side and the criminal side. The police support in North Idaho and Idaho in general is very supportive, and they understand how law enforcement is woven into the community and is part of the community, not an adversary against the public. And so I think, those were a lot of the differences that I noticed. Like I said, when we began looking down around Deary and Moscow for where we were going to be.
Have you observed sort of, since you've been in Idaho for almost 3 years now, working in law enforcement, have you observed any other differences between working in law enforcement in Western Washington State versus Idaho?
I'm going to object to the form only because I don't think it's relevant, but you can obviously answer the question.
I think where I currently work, the resources in law enforcement are significantly different than what I had available in Western Washington. People think that we can solve a crime in a 1-hour episode, 40 minutes with commercials, and it's not a reality in Western Washington. It's definitely not a reality in North Idaho. So we're just limited in our resources. That's probably the most significant thing that I recognize.
Have you noticed any differences between the way that the public in Kitsap County commented or interacted with the Kitsap County Sheriff's Office Facebook page versus how the public in Bonner County commented and interacted with posted on the Bonner County Sheriff's Office Facebook page?
Check to the phone.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear the last.
I just said it to the form, but you can answer the question anyway,
Okay.
if you were directing that to me, sorry.
I'm sorry. They're not significantly different as far as what people comment on and how they comment and whether they're pro or con or whatever to the content of the post or law enforcement. I think in Idaho, the numbers are much less con against law enforcement just in general, whereas in Western Washington, specifically Kitsap County, from my experience, there was a significant amount of con against law enforcement, higher than where I'm at now. So I would just say slightly higher in Kitsap County than Idaho, or my experience here at the Bonner County Sheriff's Office. That's the only really significant difference that I observed.
Have you completed any training about managing social media accounts for law enforcement agencies?
No, I've taken familiarization for social media for law enforcement, but not managing the program or the network or the platforms.
What could you describe what familiarization means?
Yeah, it means here's another agency and here's their examples of what they use as post and how they create content and what story ideas that they use and why they use one platform for one type of audience and another platform for another type of audience or incident. A user familiarization with how to use those different platforms within a police agency, law enforcement agency.
Okay, and was that like a formal program or formal training?
Yeah, it was I'm not sure if it was a 4-hour class or an 8-hour class. I believe it was somewhere on the east side that I attended, maybe Bellevue or Kirkland. That was several years ago.
And so that was in your capacity when you're working with the Kitsap County Sheriff's Office?
Yes, it was.
Did you receive any sort of certification or anything like that?
No, there's no certification with that type of training.
And is that the only training you've done?
Well, I mentioned earlier that within the agency, we went over, kind of the guidelines for social media with the social media team. So there was training in department to establish how we were going to operate our program within the Kitsap County Sheriff's Office.
Have you done anything like that with Bonner County Sheriff's Office?
No.
During the familiarization training you did when you were with Kitsap County Sheriff's Office, did they review anything related to the First Amendment and how that interacts with social media pages for government entities?
Not that I recall.
Have you done any other training that talks about any First Amendment issues as it relates to law enforcement?
No, I've seen bulletins like as far as people inside the post office videotaping and those type of things, like a awareness thing, but no training.
Have you done any self-education or reading on managing social media accounts for government or law enforcement agencies?
No.
How about on First Amendment issues that arise in law enforcement settings?
Not specifically, no.
Right. What did you do to prepare for today's deposition?
Make sure I had the Zoom connection, which I got
Okay.
on Friday. And also the responses that we provided. The office provided some time ago. I got those Friday afternoon as well too, so I've looked through those.
Did you review any other documents?
No, only the ones that were provided.
Okay, and the only ones that were provided were the responses that Ms. Yeagley's office produced to us, to my office.
Yes, and I believe they included the documents that we had provided, like discovery of, I had printed out each Facebook post with the hidden comments, each Facebook post without, the terms of use, the posts related to those things. So everything that was on the Facebook page as well, too, in addition to those responses.
Did you meet with Ms. Yeagley?
We spoke, was it Friday afternoon, I think, same time.
And my understanding is that you're represented by her, is that right?
Yes, that's my understanding.
So I don't want you to tell me anything that you two discussed. About how long did you speak with her?
About an hour.
Aside from your preparation for today's deposition, have you reviewed any other documents from this case?
No.
So for example, you haven't reviewed the stipulated order for preliminary injunction?
I don't know. If I had a sample of the language or something, I can say whether it's a document I've seen before, but I don't know.
Have you talked with Sheriff Wheeler or other colleagues in the Bonner County Sheriff's Office about your deposition?
No, other than my staff to let them know I'm tied up and not available.
Have you spoken with Sheriff Wheeler or your staff generally about the case?
No, other than, the depositions coming up and that type of thing, but not about content of the case, with the exception of supplying the information for those responses that they had received that they asked me for information from to supply them with.
How big is the Bonner County Sheriff's Office, like staff wise?
Well, let's see. I did payroll this morning. I think we're sitting at about 110 people.
And that includes like different ranks of officers and then the staff as well.
Yeah, there's a little under 50 commissioned, and then you've got your support staff, driver's license. We also have 911, our jail, and Marine unit as well too. And then we have a couple fleet guys. So yeah, about half of those are deputies or officers, and then a good majority from our jail as well.
And you mentioned you have a staff, do you manage a team?
Yes, I oversee everything except patrol and the jail. So I've got 911, driver's license, our support staff, payroll, internal affairs, civil, and anything else that I'm asked to do, duties as assigned.
And do you report directly to Sheriff Wheeler, or is there a layer between you?
I report directly to the undersheriff.
Okay. And what's the undersheriff's name?
Roar, R-O-R, Lakewold, L-A-K-E-W-O-L-D. I want to clarify that, Mika, just for social media, I can go directly to the undersheriff for his response approval for things, but or the undersheriff, but my primary supervisor is the undersheriff.
Okay, so sorry, so you go to the sheriff for social media approval.
Sheriff and undersheriff.
And, okay, both of them, but
Yeah.
your supervisor is the undersheriff.
Correct.
So you joined the Bonner County Sheriff's Office in January of 2021. And did you start, my understanding is that you started as a detective, is that right?
I was a patrol deputy for about 13 months.
And then you got promoted.
I was promoted to detective. I believe that was March of 22.
Okay. And you're now a lieutenant.
Correct. And that was in October or November this year.
Okay. How soon after joining the Bonner County Sheriff's Office did you become involved with the social media account?
I believe it was February, March of 22. I blew out my knee on patrol at a traffic collision in the snow, and had to have knee surgery. And I was in the office on light duty, and that's when the discussion about social media with the sheriff took place. February-ish of 2022, I believe.
About a year after you joined.
Yes.
And my understanding is that that's when you suggested that the sheriff enable comments on the Bonner County Facebook page.
Yeah, that was part of my conversation with them. Yes.
And And then you created the terms of use.
I proposed a terms of use, and then, yes, it was agreed to and reviewed, and then put on the platform, the Facebook platform.
And I couldn't get my mute off fast enough. I'm gonna put a
Sorry.
objection. No, you're fine. I'm just gonna put an objection to that question. And she has it on the record anyway.
And then subsequent to the terms of use being approved, was when Facebook comments were enabled.
Yes.
When did you begin monitoring the Facebook page?
At the same time, right around when that terms of use was posted and begun, that was kind of where I was asked to use or become one of the people that worked on the Facebook page.
Who asked you to do that?
The sheriff.
And you said one of the people, were there others who had monitoring duties?
There were several people that already had access to Facebook, but it was not very active. So the sheriff would ask those people to post on his behalf, or before I was there, and then I would post, with his authority. Yeah, and it wasn't very active. And I was trying, as I came in from another agency that had active social media, to improve that program.
When the sheriff asked you to monitor the assumed duties to monitor the Facebook page, was it your understanding that you would have primary responsibility for monitoring, or you would share it with others?
It ended up being, it wasn't ever formally said, but it ended up being me primarily doing it, and then other people filling in as needed. If I wasn't available, or if it was something that needed to go out right away that I couldn't do it, or I became kind of the person that they sent ideas to and content to start the process. I hope that answers your question.
You said it was never formalized. Was it memorialized in any way that you had these duties?
I don't know, not that I am aware.
Okay. So was it written down anywhere that you had the monitoring duties?
No, I don't think there was, like I said, I don't think there was anything other than the sheriff giving me authority to come up with content for the page, run it by him and the undersheriff, and monitor the comments that came up as a result of those posts.
Was there anything that you could do, any action you could take on the Facebook page that you didn't have to run by the sheriff or undersheriff?
Not that they said, but there were times where, like, I would do a typo and I would edit the typo without getting permission. Or there were times where I said, hey, I made a correction on the Facebook page to whatever, misspelling or a typo or those kind of things. But I never did anything out on my own. I mean, I always created a draft content and submitted it for approval. And then based on that approval or decline, there were things that were declined to be posted. I would either post it or not post it based on that.
So aside from typos on posts, anytime you've wanted to take some sort of action with respect to the Facebook page, you would run it by the sheriff or undersheriff for approval.
Correct.
Going back to the terms of use for a second, what were the differences between the terms of use for the Bonner County Sheriff's Office Facebook page and the Kitsap County Sheriff's Office Facebook page, if any?
I don't know the differences because I don't recall and I haven't reviewed the Kitsap County Sheriff's Office terms of conditions or terms of use. But my belief is that they are very similar to Pierce County's, and it may have been one that I even looked at trying to come up with a draft terms of use, but ultimately it was decided to move forward with the example that Pierce County has on their Facebook page.
You said move forward. With the Pierce County terms of use, does that mean that was the sort of model that was implemented, or was the model that you proposed to Sheriff Wheeler?
I'm not sure if you're asking the same thing or not, but it was the model that we used to create our policy.
Okay.
I presented Pierce County's to the sheriff and said, this appears to be a good example. And that's when he continued with the legal review and finally decided on what he wanted posted as the terms of use.
Were there, and I don't want to ask you about the substance of the edits, but were there edits between, from what you sent to the sheriff and what he sent back as what he wanted to use?
I don't know. Yeah.
Before you suggested to the sheriff that the public be able to comment on the Bonner County Sheriff's Office Facebook page, was it your understanding that the public had never been able to comment on the page at all?
No, I believe prior to the time that I was involved in the Facebook, I believe that comments were allowed at some point. I don't know the timelines, but I believe they were allowed at some point.
How did you learn that, or how did you come to form that belief?
Just from viewing the Facebook page, because you can look at historical posts. And I believe there were comments on prior posts.
Did you have conversations with anyone about why comments were disabled?
No.
I'm gonna object to the form.
You didn't ask anyone about why comments had been enabled previously and then they had stopped?
Same objection.
I don't remember having that conversation or what any conversation about that would have been.
Could you describe for me as best you can the scope of your monitoring duties? So for example, if you had to train someone to take over your monitoring role, what would you want to explain to them or tell them?
When you put a post up, have a timely review of what's being posted. I don't expect you to get up at 3 o'clock in the morning to check, see who commented, but look at it periodically to see if there's any leads to what's being posted or any information that needs to be shared via what's being commented on. And yeah, I mean, if there's something like that, then it's important that you timely pass along that information. Because we've used it for missing people and we found them within the hour with the public's help. And so reviewing those comments and getting the public's input, I mean, you need to be responsible for that. As far as, I don't know, I'd never thought about training anybody for it, but yeah, I think, just see what's there. And if it's something that needs attention, then pass along that to who needs to give it attention. If there's a detective responsible, if the Marine unit's responsible for it, if it's something a supervisor needs to know about the actions of an employee, pass it along to where it needs to be passed along to. Yeah, I don't know anything else, I guess.
Could you describe what someone should know about how to review comments that may or may not violate the terms of use, and how you would determine that whether a comment violated a term of use?
Check to the form.
Well, if the monitor felt that a comment violated the terms of use, number one, I would notify the sheriff about it, or undersheriff about it. Say, hey, we had this come up. A lot of the stuff on Facebook is filtered before we even see it. So Facebook hides things and before we even see them. So there's stuff in the Facebook filters that are being censored before I even have a chance to review them. But those ones that come through, we review them. And yeah, I mean, I review them and then notify the sheriff or undersheriff if there was something concerning. Because, unfortunately, people, because it's just a keyboard in front of them, unfortunately, people use that to sometimes incite violence and those type of things. And that's why it's important that we're paying attention to what's being typed, because it's our platform that's putting it back out into the community.
Regarding the filters that you described, are those filters something that you set up or that you enabled?
We at the Bonner County Sheriff's Office, since I've been involved in the Facebook page, have not modified the filters that I am aware of. However, I don't know what they were set up like before, and there are filters there that Facebook sets up that they run, and I don't know what those analytics or how that even works or what process is happening behind the scenes, because that's probably stuff that they're protecting behind their platform. But yeah, so I hope that answers your question.
So how did you become aware that Facebook is filtering comments?
Both from the social media familiarization and then what they show you on the website. I mean, what they show you on your platform. As far as moderator assist, I think is what the group is that hides or doesn't let comments become public. And that's a system set up by Facebook. And I don't know if that's set up by Facebook or by the agency, but I think it's called moderator assist or something like that. I don't know.
And you mentioned that you can see the comments that are filtered out.
Some of them, yes, because
Okay.
there's some that we never even see that are hidden from view, but in that moderator assist, there are comments which were never hidden by our agency. So I don't know how that happens.
So there's two buckets, if you will, of comments that Facebook filters out. One, you don't know what Facebook is filtering through their own program. And then the second bucket is the comments that are filtered out through moderator assist.
I'm not sure if moderator assist and Facebook filters are a different thing or not, because I don't utilize any filtering or haven't. I'm not familiar with that. And I would say there's a third bucket where you manually, as in our case, hide the comment.
Okay, yeah. When you started working on the Facebook page, did anyone tell you, hey, we had these filters set up from back when we used to have comments, anything like that?
No, as I stated, I know nothing about the prior filters or how they were set up.
Okay. Have you ever changed them or adjusted the settings on
No,
the filters?
I'm sorry, as I stated, I've never adjusted or changed the filters.
You mentioned that there are other people who have sort of management access on the Facebook page. Are there other administrators of the Facebook page?
There are other administrators, yes.
Who are those people?
I'm probably not going to include them all because I don't know everybody. I know that Jackie Rogers is one.
What's her position?
She's our payroll person.
Okay.
Colleen Reinick.
And what's her position?
Victim advocate, investigative assistant for our detectives. Okay, Colleen. Jason Davis, who's a patrol deputy.
Mhm.
And I believe Lieutenant Tony Riffle may have access as well too. And I'm not sure about, I know the sheriff does, but may not be able to sign on. I don't know about the undersheriff.
How did it come to be that those people were given administrator access?
I don't know because they were all Facebook administrators when I was one of the new Facebook administrators. So I don't know what happened prior to me joining that group.
Have you had any discussions with them about monitoring the page or who's doing what with respect to monitoring the Facebook page?
No, because as I stated, March of 22 or so, I became primarily the person handling it for the sheriff.
Aside from you proposing posts or proposing other actions to the undersheriff or sheriff for approval on the Facebook page, have the sheriff or undersheriff ever told you, post this, do this, take some sort of other action?
Yes, post ideas have come from the sheriff, probably more frequently than anyone. And then the undersheriff will occasionally give me post ideas. But I would say that I come up with the other part of the content. And then there's a couple other people sprinkled in there, here and there, with content ideas. And then like for office closures and that kind of stuff, the staff notifies us of that so that I can get that content publicized.
Have the sheriff or undersheriff, they told you ever to hide a comment?
Yes.
How about blocking a Facebook user?
Yes.
Have you ever proposed hiding a comment to the sheriff or undersheriff?
Yes, as a result of those conversations, like in Mr. Lighty's case, where they said he's violating our rules, hide him. And then I would say, hey, there's another comment that violates the rules, and he'd say hide it, or those type of things. So yes.
How about instructions, how about proposals from you to the sheriff or undersheriff to block a Facebook user?
No, I don't believe I ever made a proposal like that.
Have the sheriff or undersheriff ever instructed you or told you to do something on the Facebook page that you disagreed with?
To the phone.
I would say yes, because the disagreement that the sheriff and undersheriff and I have about comments in general, I disagreed with hiding comments in general, or blocking users in general. And I've never done that on my own.
Did you share that? Or let me, sorry, strike that. How early in your Facebook page management tenure did you disagree with the sheriff or undersheriff about hiding comments?
Well, I think the disagreement occurred as soon as Mr. Lighty began posting comments that violated the terms, and then the sheriff and I would discuss that. And he would say to hide it, and I would say not to hide it. And, you know, obviously things escalated from there based on Mr. Lighty's continued use of the page.
Well, could you describe what you two discussed about, you know, when initially Mr. Leighty commented and the sheriff asked you to hide the comment?
I don't remember specifically.
But you told the sheriff, I don't think we should hide this comment.
That's correct. We had a difference of opinion on what to do as a result of those comments being posted and then hidden. I was of the opinion and am of the opinion that the public self-regulates people that violate the terms of the use. And I was more in the position to say, we don't need to hide it because the community self-polices and knows who these people are. And it doesn't, we don't need to do that because the public has already dismissed these people and understands where they're coming from. That's a generalization of probably several conversations about the hiding or not hiding of comments. I can't specifically pinpoint first time or second time or anything like that. I'm sorry.
Aside from the idea that the public will sort of self-regulate the comments, are there other reasons for why you disagreed with the sheriff's instruction to hide comments?
Well, I think that was, from my experience, that was the primary reason. I don't have anything further. I mean, there was no reason. I felt that I didn't need to hide the comments because the community regulates those users, and they, you know, I mean, they take it for what it is.
Could you explain a little bit more about what you mean by sort of that the community regulates, or their self-regulation of the comments?
Well, I mean, for instance, somebody could comment after a comment that there's a comment that violates the terms of use. Say it's completely off topic or it's a personal attack on somebody. Let's just say it's off topic and a personal attack on somebody. The commenters that usually follow that end up saying, you know, you're way off topic here. What are you doing? Stick to the subject, or those type of things. So they understand that people have, you know, whatever their reason for posting that, but they kind of, like I said, they take care of it themselves. They basically say, hey guy, you know, that was off topic and don't attack these people, or that type of thing. I mean, that's what I mean by the community kind of self-policing its own, the threat of comments.
And it sounds like you explained your belief to Sheriff Wheeler.
I did.
And what was his response?
Well, I believe he heard me, and I believe he took it into consideration. I don't remember a response of I disagree with you or anything like that, or I agree with you, but it was just part of conversation.
Did he explain why he disagreed with you, or in other words, why he nonetheless wanted to have the comments hidden?
No, I don't believe he provided me with any in-depth explanation for hiding comments, for his reason for hiding comments.
Correct me if I'm wrong. I think you also said that you disagreed with his instruction to block certain Facebook users from the Bonner County Sheriff's Office Facebook page. Is that right?
Yes, and just to clarify, Mr. Lighty was the only one that I blocked at his direction.
Why did you disagree with that direction to block Mr. Lighty?
The same disagreement with why I would want comments not hidden is, you know, as long as he's on there making whatever comments he's making, the community sees that and he gets his voice, and it's left the way it is. And yeah, I mean, so like I said, Mr. Lighty was the only person I had ever blocked, and blocked him at the direction of the sheriff. And yeah, I mean, I don't have any further explanation.
Did the sheriff explain why he nonetheless wanted Mr. Lighty blocked?
Oh, it was understood that after, you know, multiple violations of the terms of use, after warnings by me to all Facebook users to, you know, keep on task with the posts that are posted, that, you know, after Mr. Lighty's comments became labor intensive for me to go, okay, now we've gotten like 5, 6 comments, whatever, today that violate the rules. I don't know what the exact number was or what the exact posts were, but eventually the sheriff's like, we need him blocked, and I blocked him.
Did you think it was legal to block Mr. Lighty from the Bonner County Sheriff's Office Facebook page?
I didn't know that it wasn't legal.
How about hiding comments? Did you believe it was legal to do that?
The same thing. I didn't have an opinion one way or another.
And I'm going to object to the form. Sorry, I couldn't get my unmute button off. Calls for a legal conclusion.
So it sounds like, and again, correct me if I'm wrong, you didn't believe that Mr. Lighty should have been, or sorry, that he should have been blocked from the Facebook page, and that his comments should not have been hidden. Is that right?
I want to make sure I got your question completely, because we bounced around there. I did not believe that Mr. Lighty's comments should be hidden or that he should be blocked. That's my personal opinion. But I did it at the direction of the sheriff.
And you mentioned multiple violations of the terms of use, that Mr. Lighty's comments had violated the terms of use. Did you believe, or were you in agreement with the sheriff that Mr. Lighty's comments violated the terms of use?
Absolutely.
We've been going for a little over an hour, so maybe we can take about a 10-minute break and reconvene at 1 p.m. Does that sound good to everyone?
And Micah, do you know, will you be done by 2:30? Just this, it's for me. I have a 2:45, which will take me about 5 minutes to get to. I just want to make sure that I don't need to cancel that.
It is unlikely that I'll be done by 2:30.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, we're going off the record. It's 12:49.
Okay, thank you.